If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew on morning wings to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness to the far western horizon, you'd find me in a moment. Darkness isn't dark. You're already there waiting. If I flew
every My. If you didn't know to take you to Jesus, you know it now. When you walk across floors that you did not scrub, and you go through doors you didn't open, turn around, scrub some floors, open some doors. In a world where there's no desire for heaven and no fear of hell, the one question left is, will you leave the world better than you found it? And certainly we can say that the Queen has left the world better than she found it. I told the bishop, this was my first and last time up, you know your name and you know what you own to do. Folk know you, don't your name wouldn't be on the program. So there's no need of somebody getting up, calling you, talking about you. Get up, do what you got to do. If you don't, I found out something about the bishop working with him today. He can walk fast and most men run. If you're coming up at the wrong time, he will get up and sit you down. Because he's not just a bishop. He's the apodectic pope. Please come where your name appears on the program.
Good morning. I'm Mike Duggan. I have the honor to be the mayor of Detroit. And for the last 2 weeks, Detroit has been the center of an overwhelming emotional outpouring with the loss of our cherished daughter, Aretha Franklin. And for longtime Detroiters, that emotional connection goes back even before Aretha, to her father, Reverend C.L. Franklin, one of Detroit and America's great civil rights leaders. Reverend Franklin was chief organizer of the Detroit Walk to Freedom on June 23, 1963. 100,000 Detroiters marched down Woodward Avenue, led by Dr. Martin Luther King and Reverend Franklin, walking arm in arm in Detroit's largest civil rights event. And at the end of that march, at Cobo Hall in Detroit, Dr. King delivered his first I Have a Dream speech, 2 months before the historic speech in Washington, D.C. And so as I watched this week, as tens of thousands of people lined up outside the Charles Wright Museum, blocks-long lines waiting to pay their final respects to Aretha Franklin, I thought back to those long lines on Woodward behind Reverend C.L. Franklin 55 years ago and thought the Franklin family has had a huge impact on the city of Detroit for more than half a century. We all know that young Aretha got her musical start right here in Detroit at the New Bethel Baptist Church Gospel Choir, was making her first recordings by the time she was 14, and in each of her 17 top 10 hits, each time she soared, it felt like the people of Detroit soared with her because she never lost her connection to our city. And of course, along with the successes she had in her life, she also suffered real tragedy. And when you listened to the raw emotional power of that extraordinary voice, you could feel both great joy and great loss. When Aretha Franklin sang, it felt like the voice of Detroit, didn't it? Which I'm sure is why every place I've gone the past 2 weeks, all I get asked is, what is Detroit going to do to honor Aretha Franklin? And I want to talk about that today. Because as we talk to those close to her and her family, one of the themes that kept coming up was that Ms. Franklin loved the Detroit River, that she lived her last months in the riverfront apartments, that she seemed to draw spiritual power from the river itself, and that one of her favorite places in the world is Chene Park. Now, if you don't know the history of Chene Park, it was a project started by Mayor Coleman Young in the 1980s. Because then, right, if you wanted to go to an outdoor concert in the 80s, you had to drive up to Pine Knob, an hour away. It's a beautiful facility, but wasn't accessible to this community. And Mayor Young said, Detroit is the center of music in Michigan. We're going to have our own outdoor concert setting. And so he went and took an abandoned barge dock site on Chene Avenue in the riverfront. And he said, that's where Detroit's going to have outdoor concerts. Now, I went to that first concert season in 1985. It was basically a stage and a bunch of blankets on a hill, right? That's the way it started. But even then, it felt special because it was ours. But over the next 5 years, Mayor Young built an amphitheater that could accommodate 6,000 people and a beautifully landscaped park that was an attraction to the city. And with the leadership of Shaida Mayusi, Chene Park has hosted many of America's great entertainers, Stevie Wonder and Jack White, Earth, Wind and Fire, Diana Ross, Run DMC, B.B. King, Ray Charles, and so many others. But the single largest event ever held was the 30th year anniversary of Chene Park, August 22nd, 2015. And the performer that evening was, of course, Aretha Franklin. And what makes Chene Park truly unique is we've kept to the original mission, that even with all those world-class performers, half of our concerts are either free at low-cost tickets, so it's a place that belongs to all Detroiters. And those concerts are now drawing nearly 100,000 concert goers a year. And anybody that was at last night's event knows it is now one of the finest outdoor music venues in the United States. And so I met with President Brenda Jones and talked to my partners on Detroit City Council. And today, it is with their strong and enthusiastic support that I can tell you that on Tuesday, I will be sending City Council a proposal to rename Chene Park. Our beautiful waterfront jewel will be Aretha Franklin Park. And when performers from generations to come from around the world come here, they'll be reminded that they are performing at the home of the Queen of Soul. God bless you.
And the mayor just got reelected.
Good afternoon to everyone. I would like to ask, I am Detroit City Council President Brenda Jones, and I would like to ask my colleagues to please stand. My colleagues of Detroit City Council, we follow the mayor with a resolution requesting the renaming of Chene Park to Aretha Franklin Park. This resolution will be presented and passed on Tuesday, tomorrow, next week, and also will follow is an ordinance, which is law, to ensure that Chene Park will remain Aretha Franklin Park. Aretha was world famous, but she was more than just a singer or a recording artist. Her humanitarian efforts, larger than life heart, and silent generosity will forever be remembered. Whether you met her personally or just heard her distinguished voice on many of her hits, Queen Aretha touched us all, from the boardroom to the plant floor, from the east side to the west side. She united us all under a banner of RESPECT, respect. Although Aretha received many different awards and recognitions, she texted me and indicated the greatest was having a street, Aretha Franklin Way, named for her in the city she loved. And I am humbled to have led that effort to honor Aretha and give her her flowers while she was living. I am also proud to present to the family the highest honor bestowed by the Detroit City Council, a resolution and memorial, and I have one for all of her sons. In the interest of time, I will not read the resolution, but I am pleased to inform you that a copy of this resolution will be placed in the archives of the city of Detroit, and Aretha Franklin's life and her legacy will live on in the city of Detroit. And also, there are many things about Aretha that are displayed in this testimonial resolution in memoriam. And it reads about, whereas proud of her professional accomplishments, she was equally content with the joy she received from those she cherished, including family and friends. The mother of 4 sons, Aretha created and nurtured connections with loved ones all around the world, and most certainly left a lasting impression in the hearts and minds of those she knew personally and many that she never met. The Detroit diva performed her final hometown show on June 10th, 2017, headlining the Detroit Music Weekend Festival at the Music Hall. And whereas we wish to honor Aretha Franklin with the city's most prestigious displays of appreciation, which is the secondary street, officially renaming a portion of Madison Avenue, Aretha Franklin Way, which now occupies the intersection between Withrow and Brush Street. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Detroit City Council joins with family and friends and family in honoring the life and the legacy of Aretha Franklin. She will be greatly missed, and her contributions to the world will live on and on. God bless you. God bless Aretha Franklin and all that she contributed to the world international. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Reverend Joanne Watson. Aretha Franklin was my dear friend. She loved Detroit. She loved her family. She loved her father especially. She loved New Bethel Baptist Church, where she grew up singing and supporting the ministry of Reverend Dr. C.L. Franklin. Aretha also loved the civil rights movement. She loved the human rights movement. She loved the women's rights movement. She loved the environmental justice movement. She loved the reparations movement. Whenever I'd go to a reparations meeting somewhere in the nation, she'd say, "Joanne, tell them to bring me back a check." She asked me to attend the premiere of Selma with her in New York City. What a blessing to be there. And she whispered to me in New York, I brought you here so you could represent my father. She never relied on anyone else to tell her story. She wrote her own script. She handled her own business. She understood how to wield power without raising her voice. She was paid in advance when she performed. She would insist there be no air conditioning if she was to sing. She refused to be extorted or disrespected. She planned and paid for her own Christmas parties. She planned and paid for her own birthday parties. Come on, somebody. With exquisite top-of-the-line entertainment and first-class cuisine. When she first received the diagnosis and underwent a medical procedure December 2nd, 2010, she asked me to host a prayer vigil for her at City Hall, and she personally selected the ministers who would stand in front of the Spirit of Detroit. And she wanted Miss Fannie Tyler to tell them they were only to pray and not to talk to the press. My. She was the world's queen, an invaluable musical treasure, a humanitarian, a daddy's girl, filled with amazing grace. But more than anything else, she was a quintessential epitome of the greatness and authenticity of the city of Detroit. She would ride the streets of Detroit, taking note of people who had special needs, quietly dispensing donations. And she also never took her eyes off the Reverend Dr. C.L. Franklin sign on Linwood in Philadelphia, or her father's plaque in the Reverend Dr. C.L. Franklin Park. I'd get those midnight calls and say, Joanne, you're going to have to put my daddy's sign up again. Whether I was in office or retired. She was in a class by herself. She will forever be our angel queen, Aretha Louise Franklin. Forever. I believe that the federal government would do well to have a postage stamp honoring our queen, Aretha Franklin. Honor Aretha in the same way she always honored us. She's now Queen Mother, as she has been risen to the ancestral realm, ruling, knowing that the Lord is going to say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make you master over many. Thank you, God, for her life. Thank you, God, for her song. Thank you, God, for her service. Thank you, God, for her Royal Highness, our Queen, Aretha Franklin.
Well, good afternoon. I want to start by thanking the Franklin family. It's an honor that you would invite me to come speak and to bring my wife, Sue. And on behalf of every citizen of the state of Michigan, our thoughts and prayers are with all of you. Aretha was a special person to the state of Michigan, to all of us in the state. Many of you know how many awards she won, and she deserved every single one of those. But I'm going to mention an honor you may not have ever heard of, but it reflects our feelings for her. And it gets shown in the outpouring and love and support you've seen this week for all these wonderful events. Back in the 80s, under Governor Blanchard, the Michigan Department of Natural Resources actually declared Aretha's voice was a natural resource of the state of Michigan. That's something special, folks. That strikes you right in the heart. The other part of it, though, as a Michigander, I thought I'd share something about what the Queen of Soul really meant to all of us. And the thing is, the Queen of Soul is not a title. It's a feeling. It's an emotion. And it means different things. And I just thought I'd share 3 of those very quickly with you, because we have so many wonderful people to talk and sing. First, if you looked at it, she had a God-given voice, a talent, a musical skill that people only dream of. But she did more than that. She took not just the triumphs of her life, she took the challenges and the tragedies and brought a special humanity to her words, to her voice, to her music that most musicians would only dream to have. And it's something that struck us all in our heart and soul. And I'll give you a simple case. In our family, we'll have family outings, we'll have friends over, and all of a sudden, I never know why, there's spontaneous singing. They start singing, and you know what number 1 on the hit list is? Respect. And you know who the leader of the chorus is? My wife, Sue. And it's wonderful. It comes out, everyone gets fired up. And I can tell you when it's done, though. If I'm feeling brave, I will suggest to her that she leave the recordings to Aretha and the performances to Aretha. But it has transformed lives. The second thing is, it's not just about entertaining. It's not just about making us feel better. She used her presence, her voice, her music to make the world a better place. The work she did for civil rights, the work she did for women's rights, that was making a profound difference in our society. And we should be proud, and that's why she's the King of Soul also. Finally, one thing to share with you is if you think about our lives, we're on this world for a very short time. If we live a good life, and most of us will, we'll have the opportunity to say we made a positive impact on our children, our family, our friends, our neighbors, our community, potentially even the world. And we should be proud of that. But Aretha brought something different. Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, brought something bigger. Now stop and think, it's not just going to be us that are going to benefit from what she's given us already, or all the people of Michigan, all the people of the world that are living today. Aretha Franklin is timeless. Her gift will continue giving for not just 5, 10, 50 years. It will be 100, 200, 500 years that the message she's sending in her music, in her spirit, and bringing humanity to these things will make a difference. Those are incredible gifts, and we should be so proud. And I will tell you that the people of Detroit, the people of Michigan, have a very special place in our heart, and we will remember these gifts in so many different ways. So God bless you, Aretha, and to the Franklin family. Thank you so much.
Please receive at this time the music ministry of Ariana Grande. I've got to apologize because I have to brush up. My 28-year-old daughter tells me, Dad, you are old at 60. When I saw Ariana Grande on the program, I thought that was a new something at Taco Bell. Girl, let me give you all your respect. Did y'all enjoy this icon? She's an icon herself. Come on, make her feel love at Greater Grace Temple, the city of David.
We love you, Aretha.
Please receive one of the greatest voices for the urban community. One, amen. Not them yet. This is one of the greatest voices, not many of the greatest voices. We're going to adjust the program quickly at this time. This man has spoken out. He stood on the front line. He has been a man for the people, of the people. Please receive Reverend Al Sharpton.
Thank you, Bishop. To the Franklin family and to all of us gathered, Aretha Franklin was not only an unparalleled artist, she was a civil rights activist and freedom fighter. It is easy to celebrate the gifts that God gives. It is more difficult when someone uses those gifts in ways that enhances humanity. Aretha Franklin was given special gifts, but she used it in a special way. And she would not want us to celebrate her without talking about she stood for something. She never shamed us. She never disgraced us. She never made us make excuses for her. She represented the best in our community, and she fought for our community until the end. I first met Miss Franklin when I was a teenager. I'd become youth director of New York Operation Breadbasket, and she would come to the strategy meetings with Reverend Jackson. And I would hear the stories of how when Dr. Martin Luther King could make payroll, Harry Belafonte and Aretha Franklin went on an 11-city tour to raise money for Martin Luther King. A lot of artists hang up Dr. King's photo, but Aretha went and raised money and gave it and worked free. Her daddy marched with Dr. King, and she never stopped supporting. As the years went by and I developed National Action Network, and she would call my radio show and have me come to her affairs. She called me one day. She said, Reverend Mal, I want to send you something. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, what's your home address? And she sent it. About 3 days later, I got a check made out National Action Network signed by Aretha Franklin. I saw about a month later, I said, you know, I was so blown away. I grew up looking up to you that I framed that check. She said, boy, don't you have a copy machine? She said, you don't know how I am with my bank accounts. You better cash that check in. But all of her life, she supported the causes. She was a feminist before feminism was popular. She was a civil rights activist when it wasn't popular. She gave us pride, and she gave us a regal bar to reach. And that's why we're all here. We don't all agree on everything, but we agree on Aretha. And she fought for everybody. I remember when we were used to picket, Charles Williams and all of us jumping on the record industry. She said, now y'all leave Clive Davis alone. He's one of the good ones. She loved Clive and said, we got to remember what happened to the Irish and what happened to Jews and what happened to blacks. And that is why we remember her legacy, because she sang a song for all of us. She was the soundtrack of the civil rights movement. If you track where we are, you can follow where Aretha had us. That's why when I look at her and James Brown, whose daughter is here, and others who paid a price, that opened the door, but never forgot where they came from. She was rooted in the black church. She was bathed in the black church. And she took the black church downtown and made folks that didn't know what the Holy Ghost was shout in the middle of a concert. You never saw her perform without her doing gospel, because she never was a one to forget where she came from. And that's why we give her this great homegoing. We thank her for what she did with Dr. King. We thank her for what she's done with Reverend Jackson. We thank her for what she's done with all of us. And that is why, you know, the other Sunday on my show, I misspelled respect. And a lot of y'all corrected me. Now I want y'all to help me correct President Trump to teach him what it means. And I say that because when word had went out that Miss Franklin passed, Trump said she used to work for me. No, she used to perform for you. She worked for us. Aretha never took orders from nobody but God. So Aretha, as you get your rest, my mother passed about 6 years ago. President Clinton, my mother and I had a deal. She said, I'll meet you on the other side. You live the way you're supposed to, and I'll see you in heaven. I said, well, Ma, they tell me there is no bodies in heaven, just spirits. How am I going to know you? I know her sons. How will I know it? She said, I'll tell you, you meet me at the exchange counter. I said, exchange counter? What kind of exchange counter? She said, well, right after you get through the Golden Gates, there's an exchange counter. That's where you hand in your cross to pick up your crown. We watched Aretha bear her cross down here. She had to sing with a broken heart. She had to work when she didn't get paid. She was a black woman in a white man's world. She bared her cross. She fought a good fight. Now it's time to crown the queen. I'll see you at the exchange counter where you can now hand in your cross. Ain't no cancer over there, Aretha. Hand in your cross and pick up your crown. As I take my seat, I've been asked to read this. Don't do that. Because I only have 5 minutes and y'all will make me go into something else. Dear friends and family of Aretha, Michelle and I extend our heartfelt sympathies to all of those who gathered in Detroit, and we join you in remembering and celebrating the life of the Queen of Soul. From a young age, Aretha Franklin rocked the world of anyone who had the pleasure of hearing her voice, whether bringing people together through thrilling intersections of genres or advancing important causes through the power of song. Aretha's work reflected the very best of the American story, in all of its hope and heart, its boldness and its unmistakable beauty. In the examples she set both as an artist and a citizen, Aretha embodied those most revered virtues of forgiveness and reconciliation, while the music she made captured some of our deepest human desires, namely affection and respect. And through her voice, her own voice, Aretha lifted those of millions, empowering and inspiring the vulnerable, the downtrodden, and everyone who may have just needed a little love. Aretha truly was one of a kind, and as you pay tribute, know we'll be saying a little prayer for you, and we'll be thinking of all of Aretha's loved ones in the days and weeks to come. Sincerely, Barack Obama, 44th President of the United States.
Please receive Motown great, Detroit's own, Mr. Smokey Robinson. At Levi Stubbs, the Four Tops funeral a few years ago here, Smokey had all of the Motown recording artists to come and to stand at the casket. And I looked and I saw Kings and Walkers and gray hair and no hair. And I kept looking at them and looking at Smokey. And I said, I want what you drinking and eating. Give Smokey Robinson a hand. He'll be followed by the Clark sisters.
I didn't know where you were going to go with that. So I'm about 8 years old, and I'm outside and I'm playing with my neighborhood friends, with Sackhead and Phoebe and Ollie, and we're shooting marbles because it was in a time when kids were able to play outside, you know? So I don't even know if boys know what that is anymore, but Richard Ross, another one of our friends, came around, and there's a new guy with him. And he introduced him. He said, "This is Cecil." So we all, you know, like boys do, we started playing. And after a while, we went around to see Cecil's new house because they had just moved to Detroit from Buffalo. And we go in, and we're walking around the house looking at, and I'm seeing stuff that I had never seen because it wasn't nearly like my house because, you know, somebody broke in my house, they better be bringing something. So, anyway, we're walking around the house, and I hear music, the piano being played, and this voice that sounds like a little girl singing. And I go and look in that room, and I see you, and you're there, and you're singing, and that was my first meeting and my first sight of you. And from that moment on, almost we have been so close and so tight. And I didn't know, especially this soon, that I was going to be having to say goodbye to you or farewell or whatever. We've seen everybody, all the people that I mentioned earlier, pass on and go. And we talked about it many times, how we were the two who were left out of all our neighborhood friends. We were the longest ones. We weren't the only two left, but we were the longest ones. So now my longest friend has gone home, and you want to be with our Father like we all have to do one of these days. And I know you're up there and you're celebrating with your family and with all of our neighborhood friends who have gone. And you're going to be one of the featured voices in the choir of angels because, you know, you'd have to be. I also know, you know, I've been on the road and I've been watching the celebration of your life from everywhere. And I've been doing interviews from everywhere, from all over the world. In fact, the last one I did was from Brazil. And the station that I was talking on covered all of South America. So the world is celebrating you. And the world is mourning you, and the world is going to miss you. And I know that I'm going to miss you so much because I miss our talks. And we would talk for hours sometimes, just talking about really anything we wanted to talk about or nothing. And the last conversation we had, you were telling me that you were getting ready to do your movie, and you wanted to know who I wanted to play me. So I told you I was going to leave that up to you because you're so special. And a while back, we did a mini-series on the Temptations' life. And for that movie, I did a score. I did the score for the movie, and I had to write a song for Melvin Franklin, who was another one of our close people. And I'm sure he won't mind if I sing a little bit of it for you because it fits you so perfectly in my life. Really gonna miss you. It's really gonna be different without you. For the rest of my life, gonna be thinking about you. I'll miss you, my buddy. I'll miss you, my friend. I know that my love for you will never end, will never end, and I'm gonna love you forever.
He said, let's go to church. Let me just say this. This is on behalf of me and my sisters. Miss Franklin has just been a jewel to us. The world is watching. Many of you are from all over the world. But I want to hear from Motown tonight. Let's salute the Queen tonight. Can we, Detroit, can we salute the Queen? So many memories of Miss Franklin, and we never will forget the day we performed on the Grammys with her. She was so cordial to us. She said, y'all know y'all my girl. And it was just so many great memories. Of course, Karen, she will not talk, but it's okay. It's okay. But she loved Karen, and I just want to say, let's continue to keep the Queen in our hearts. Twinkie wrote a song, says, is my living in vain? Is my giving in vain? Is my praying in vain? Is my fasting in vain? Am I wasting my time? Can the clock be rewind? No, of course not. It's not all in vain.
He is my living in vain. He is my giving in vain. He is my praying in vain. He is my fasting in vain. Am I wasting my time? Can the clock be rewind? Have I let my light shine? Have I made 99? No, 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 of course not. It's not all in vain. 'Cause up the road is eternal gain. Is my labor is it in vain? Ooh, Lord.
Is my speaking, my preaching, my speaking, my preaching, my speaking, my preaching, my speaking, my preaching in vain?
Is my singing in vain? Playing is in vain. Oh, no. Of course not. No, 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 no. Of course not. No, 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 no. Of course not. It's not all in vain. Your singing is not in vain. It's not all in vain. Your preaching is not in vain. It's not all in vain. Your praying is not in vain. It's not all in vain. It's not all in vain. Your labor is not in vain. 'Cause up the road is It's not all in
Come on, Detroit's own, the Clark Sisters. Northwest Detroit, Sorrento. Aretha Franklin lived on Sorrento long before blacks could live in Grosse Pointe and Bloomfield Hills and Birmingham. We couldn't go out of town, but we could go on Outer Drive. Put your hands together one more time for the Clark Sisters. At this time, Barbara Sampson is coming with the acknowledgments and condolences. Receive her at this time.
To the family of Aretha L. Franklin, Laura and I are deeply saddened by the loss of the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. Our hearts ache for you, and our prayers are with you. Aretha was a woman of achievement with a deep character and a loving heart. She made important and lasting contributions to American music with her gospel-inspired style and distinctive voice. Her remarkable talent helped shape our nation's artistic and cultural heritage. And in 2005, it was my privilege to honor her with our country's highest civilian award, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. I am proud to have met Aretha and am grateful that her music will continue to bring joy to millions for generations to come. As you remember and honor Aretha's life, may the Almighty comfort you in your grief and sustain you during this difficult time. Laura and I send our heartfelt sympathy. May God bless you, George W. Bush. The family would like to recognize and offer a special thank you to the following friends and medical professionals who went above and beyond the call of duty to offer their services and comfort to Ms. Franklin. Dr. Donald Weaver and Dr. John Barnwell, DMC. Dr. Philip Phillips, Carmanos. Dr. Manisha Shaw and Ashimol Guyo, Ohio State. The nursing staff of the DMC and Hospice of Michigan, Connie Raban and Lori Hughes. Caregivers, friends, Beverly Bradley, Dolores Yancey, Karen Bootsy Smith, and Angela Mason. Gwendolyn Quinn, publicist. Tracy Jordan, Sirius XM Radio. A. Curtis Farrow. Brian Dickens. Bishop Charles H. Ellis III and staff. Alexis Wiley and staff of Mayor's Office. Captain Conway Petty, DPD. Zaretha Coleman. George Hamilton and staff of the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. Swanson Funeral Homes, Ford Motor Company. Tribute host and sponsors, Shahida Mausi, Shane Park, Chemical Bank, Judge Greg Mathis, Isaiah Thomas, Marvin Beatty, Greektown Casino, Mignon Moore, Donna Brazil, Yolanda Caraway, Tina Flanoy, and Leah Daltrey. Friends, Harley Brown, Ron Moten, and Linda Solomon Photography. Graphic designer, Dion Yates, and Linda Davis of R&L Color Graphics. Lastly, to all of the teams of Aretha's Angels who worked tirelessly to execute the celebration of her life and legacy. All of your acts of kindness will never be forgotten. If we have omitted anyone, charge it to our heads and not our hearts. All of your hard work and expressions of kindness will be remembered and properly acknowledged at a less stressful time.
still will. I know they will.
But now say one verse.
Can you say it for me? Yeah, Melvin.
In sad hours. It means that way sometimes. Every now and then I get a little lonely. Oh, yes, I do.
Yes, I
But you
do.
know what? The truth, oh, the truth, the real truth of Jesus. Blood, my soul.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
I know it will.
But you know what? But you know what? He whispers. Sometimes late in the midnight hour. I'll always be with you. Sacred. Oh, sacred. And will unfold.
I think we ought to say it one more time. Will you say it for us?
You better say it. In sad hours, yeah. We all go through them sometimes. When we get a little lonely, yeah. Oh, my. I tell you that's the truth. How many know about the truth? The real truth of Jesus' love. His love is true, yeah.
Yes, it is.
There's a name that's above all names. We can always fall on. Somebody have to call it sometime. Jesus. 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 bless you.
Vanessa Bell Armstrong and the Williams Brothers. Watch out, Reverend. Y'all look like y'all trying to go there. Y'all got 60 seconds. Put them hands together, get it in. Come on, take Miss Aretha to church. Tell that neighbor, this ain't Shane Park. This is the church. And in church, we do what church folk do. Come on, take Miss Franklin to church. Watch this. I hear somebody saying, I didn't know they was gonna do all that. If Miss Franklin could dance on the stage, somebody ought to be able to dance in the church. You got 60 seconds. You might as well have church if you're in church. We're here to lift up this family. We're here to try to put a smile on their face in the midst of death. Precious memories. Oh, how they linger. Oh, how they ever flood my soul. All right, we've got to move on. Amen. We still got a little ways to go. I had to give y'all 60 most. As I looked over and saw Councilwoman Debbie Dingle, she was on the 1-3. And I was trying to ask Congresswoman Sheila Lee Jackson, get on that 2-4. We're going to make her an honorary member of the Sanctified Church. All of those congressional individuals that are here on today, please stand. We don't have time to call everyone's names, but those who are serving in the United States Congress, please stand. Give God praise for all of these men and women. Our own Congresswoman Brenda Lawrence, who's on the program. At this time, to recognize Mrs. Franklin's most favorite television show. And we're so honored that most all of the cast have taken time out of their busy schedules just to honor her and to pay tribute to her with their presence. Please acknowledge and give God a great big thank you for the cast of The Haves and the Have-Nots. Mr. Tyler Perry's Haves and the Have-Nots. Thank you so very kindly. At this time, we'll receive family reflections. I ask for your undivided attention. We don't want to lose sight in the midst of all of this that she was more than an icon. She was more than the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She was more than one of the greatest gospel and secular artists ever. But she was a real woman, a real mother, a real grandmother, a real aunt. Receive Franklin family representatives Vaughn, Crystal, Victoria, and Jordan Franklin. I will ask them all to come at this time.
Hello, how are you? I remember when I was a kid, people used to always ask me, what does it feel like to be Aretha Franklin's granddaughter? And I'd always shrug my shoulders and go, I don't know, it's just my grandma. And at that young, I didn't really understand what that really meant. I knew she was someone special, I knew she was someone important, but I didn't really understand how big it was. As a kid, I've seen some of the greatest things. I've met some of the greatest people, and it was crazy because these amazing people were excited to meet me. And when I would go to her shows and watch her sing, it would be the best feeling in the world. Nothing sounded better to me than the way my grandma sings. Her voice made you feel something. You felt every word, every note, every emotion in the song she sang. Her voice brought peace. And watching her on stage from a young age to the last performance I saw her at, I knew that performing was something I was born to do. As a kid, I couldn't understand what it was like to be Aretha Franklin's granddaughter. But I didn't know what that meant, but now I know what it feels like. It feels amazing to see a woman so fierce, so courageous, gifted, so respected, and to be able to call that my grandmother, to know that I have that running through my blood, and that she's a part of who I am. And to know that she's a part of who I am, there's nothing like that. Every time I learn something new about my grandma, I see that I have so much of her in me, and it makes me smile. I'm so proud to have had someone like her in my life to pave the way for me. I love you, Grandma, and I will make you proud.
Good afternoon, everybody. I prepared something from my grandmother that I wanted to share with everybody. Dear Grandma, I love you. I know in my heart that you're happy now, and that's all that I care about. No amount of words can articulate what you mean to me, Grandma. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for believing in me as much as you did. And thank you for always putting the family first and showing us the right way to handle success. I'm sad today because I'm losing my friend, but I know that the imprint she left on this world can never be removed. You show the world God's love, and there's nothing more honorable. I'm so proud of you. I know you'll be watching me from the windows in heaven, and I promise to carry our family legacy with pride and joy. Long live the Queen.
I just want to first start out by saying I thank each and every person that's sitting in this auditorium. I thank each and every person who stood in line to see my aunt at the African American Museum at New Bethel Church. I want to thank everyone who bought an album, who bought a concert ticket. I want to thank everyone who ever took a picture of my aunt, whoever wrote an article about my aunt, and whoever loved every last song that she wrote. When I was born in '73, she always was the queen. She was already the queen of soul. Had won 8 Grammys, had top 10 hits on the top 100, but to me, she was just my aunt, my father's sister, and I was her namesake. I was given the name Crystal Robin Aretha. I was named after my mother's younger sister and my father's famous sister. My aunt Robin never let Aretha forget that her name came first, but Aretha would laugh and say they saved the best for last. To the world, she was known as the Queen of Soul, but to me, she was just my aunt. The one who gave birth to my first road dog, Kelf. My aunt who came to live with us at the age of 6 with my Uncle Vaughn, who I had no idea was a big movie star. The aunt who sung at my high school graduation, taught me my bad shopping habits, and took her granddaughters, my daughters, and I to see Disney on Ice. My aunt who taught me that emeralds were more than diamonds when we shopped for my graduation gift that I'm wearing today. My aunt who gave me my open house for college and cooked dinner for my roommate and I when she came to visit Detroit for spring break. My aunt who had a picture of my best friend and I on her piano for over 20 years. The one who listened to me when I told her she had to have Jill Scott and Mary J on her Diva special, and she had to go on Wendy. My aunt who chartered a bus so our family could go to President Obama's inauguration and made sure I was front and center for the swearing in. The one who taught me the importance of capturing every moment with a picture or two. And after every award ceremony, she was my gossip girl. The one who could bring grown women and men to tears from the sound of her voice, and the only person on earth that could call me Chrissy. I will be forever grateful for every road trip, every person I ever met through my aunt, and I'm grateful for most of all that she had a loving brother who loved my mom, and they got married and made me. And in turn, I made my daughter Brooklyn, who is now graduating from Howard this year, and that's all possible because of my aunt. One of the most important things to our family is education. My daughter goes to Howard, and Victory goes to Howard too, and their children will continue the legacy of education. because I will continue in my family name of doing the foundation so that children will never forget who my aunt was, never forget who my grandfather was, never forget my Aunt Carolyn, never forget my Aunt Irma, never forget my father, and never forget my Uncle Vaughn. And again, I just want to say to everyone sitting here, everyone watching in the world, thank you.
I was once told that love is a verb. You can tell a person that you love them, but in the end, it is what you show them that matters. My aunt loved as much and as hard as she could. As I thought about what I was going to say when I stood up here today, I thought about how much my family and I loved our mother, our grandmother, our auntie, the matriarch and a pillar of the Franklin family. I asked myself, how do you say goodbye to someone that you just love so much? Someone who has been with you for all of your adult life. Someone who took you under their wings and loved you like a son after the death of your parents. Someone who's there for you through the good times and the bad times. And someone who could make you smile with a simple hello. Over the past few months, I spent a lot of time traveling back and forth from Atlanta to Detroit to help take care of my auntie in any way that I could. During those visits, she and I talked about the importance of family, and we would even cook together. When I was with my auntie in July at her apartment in downtown Detroit, she and I were talking, and she paused for a moment in the middle of the conversation and asked, "Frankie, what do you think?" I knew what she was talking about, but how do you find the words to tell someone that you love so much that you can see her health and her physical stature declining each time that you saw her? At that moment, I knew and understood that she was aware that her final days were near. I started my remarks by asking, how do you say goodbye to someone that you love so much? We're not saying goodbye, Auntie, but farewell until we see you again in our final resting place. Thank you.
Please receive a musical tribute from Miss Franklin's son, my friend. We lived 8 blocks from each other, come Edward. We lived on Outer Drive in Wyoming, and Miss Franklin lived on Sorrento at Outer Drive. We went to McDowell Elementary together, and Bobby in junior high, Clarence and Edward and myself, and we played Little League baseball and karate lessons and Cub Scouts and all of that. A little more money than we did. Miss Franklin would always have Ed to sing on one of her appearances in concert. And he wants to give a tribute to his mother. I ask you to give God praise for Mr. Edward Franklin as he gives his mother a musical tribute.
Thank you.
Whoa, oh, mercy, mercy me. All things ain't what they used to be, no. Where did all the blue skies go? since you left my north and south, east and west. Oh, mercy, mercy me. All things ain't what they used to be. No, no. Oh, wasted on our ocean and upon our sea, fish full of mercury. No. Oh, mercy, mercy me. All things ain't what they used to be. No, no. Radiation underground and in the sky. Animals and birds who live nearby are dying. Oh, mercy, mercy me. All things ain't what they used to be. Oh, mercy, mercy me. Oh, things ain't what they used to be. No, no, no. Oh, wasted on our ocean and upon our seas, fish full of mercury. Oh. We love you, Mom. You're still here with us.
Great job, man. Love you, man. Come on, Mr. Eddie Franklin, our friend, second son of Miss Aretha Franklin. At this time, Sabrina Owens is coming with the obituary, be followed by Alice McAllister Tillman, and we'll make a deviation of the program and bring after Alice Bishop Marvin Sapp.
Aretha Louise Franklin. Aretha Franklin is a giant of soul music and an American national treasure who continues to be revered around the globe. One of the best-selling musical artists of all time, having sold more than 75 million records worldwide, the undisputed Queen of Soul. She created an amazing legacy of more than 6 decades. She has sung before heads of state and foreign royals and gained admiration from fans, colleagues, and fellow artists across all genres. She is both a 20th and 21st century musical and cultural icon who is known all over the world simply by her first name, Aretha. Her vocal mastery and artistic excellence have been recognized numerous times over the course of her distinguished career. Aretha is the recipient of the USA's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, as well as an 18-time Grammy Award winner, the recipient of the Grammy Lifetime Achievement and a Grammy Living Legend honor. She was the youngest individual ever to receive the coveted Kennedy Center honor, the first female inductee into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the second female inductee into the UK Music Hall of Fame, and an inductee into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. Aretha was the first woman and fourth artist in history to achieve 100 R&B Billboard charted singles with her version of Rolling in the Deep. Aretha has been proclaimed internationally as the voice of the civil rights movement, the voice of Black America, and a symbol of Black equality. In 1968, her spiritually uplifting voice was heard around the world, singing at the funeral of civil rights icon, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and in 1972, at the funeral of Queen of Gospel, Mahalia Jackson. Aretha's acclaimed voice was declared a natural resource of the state in 1985 by the Department of Natural Resources of the state of Michigan. Aretha would later reach a milestone in her historic career by singing at the first inauguration of President Barack Obama. Aretha's powerful, distinctive gospel-home vocal style has influenced countless singers across multiple generations and musical genres, justifiably earning her the #1 position on Rolling Stone magazine's list of the greatest singers of all time. Aretha Louise Franklin was born on March 25, 1942 in Memphis, Tennessee, the fourth of 5 children born to Reverend Clarence LaVaughn C.L. Franklin and Barbara Vernice Siggers, and was raised in Detroit. Aretha's father served as pastor of New Bethel Baptist Church in Detroit, Michigan from 1946 to 1979. A nationally recognized American Baptist minister and civil rights activist who marched with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., most notably in the 1963 Detroit Walk of Freedom. Reverend Franklin was known as the man with the $1 million voice and was one of the first Baptist ministers to record and distribute his sermons. Aretha's mother, Barbara Vernice Siggers, was a gifted pianist and, according to her close friend Mahalia Jackson, one of the finest gospel singers in the country. Talent ran strong within the family. Aretha's sisters, Irma, my mommy, and Carolyn later became professional musicians as well and spent years performing background vocals on her recordings, along with her cousin Brenda Corbett. Her brother Cecil became her manager and maintained that position until his death in 1989. Her brother Vaughn, a retired Air Force and Vietnam veteran, became her stage manager in 1990 until his death in 2002. Aretha's musical gifts were apparent at an early age. Largely self-taught, she became a gifted pianist with a powerful voice and was widely regarded as a child prodigy. Aretha got her start as a performer singing in front of her father's congregation. By the age of 14, she had recorded some of her earliest tracks at her father's church, which were released by a small label as the album Songs of Faith in 1956. She also performed with her father's traveling revival, and while on tour, befriended such gospel greats as Mahalia Jackson, Sam Cooke, and Clara Ward. In 1960, with her father's blessing, Aretha traveled to New York. After being courted by several labels there, including Motown and RCA, she signed with Columbia Records, which released the album Aretha in 1961. In 1966, Aretha signed with Atlantic Records. In 1967, the album I Never Loved the Man the Way I Love You was released. Of this period, Richie Unterberger of the All Music Guide wrote, in the late 60s, Franklin had become one of the biggest international recording stars in all of pop. In 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. himself presented her with a special award for inspiring so many Americans with her music. Franklin's success continued throughout the 70s, and as she branched out to work with notable producers such as Curtis Mayfield and Quincy Jones. Her string of top charting hits during the decade included Call Me, Don't Play That Song for Me, Spanish Harlem, Bridge Over Troubled Waters, Angel, and Daydreaming, just to name a few. In 1985, Aretha returned to the top of the charts with the platinum certified album, Who's Zoomin' Who? In 1987, Aretha became the first female artist to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Aretha continued to amass Grammy milestones. In 1991, Aretha received the Recording Academy's Grammy Legend Award. In 1993, Aretha was invited to sing at the inauguration of Bill Clinton, and the following year she received both a Grammy and a Lifetime Achievement Award. In 2003, she released her final studio album on Arista, So Damn Happy. Okay. In 2008, she received her 18th Grammy Award for Never Gonna Break My Faith. In 2009, she performed My Country, 'Tis of Thee at the historic inauguration of President Barack Obama. Over the course of her career, Franklin has supported a large number of charities and advocacy organizations, including the NAACP, Special Olympics, Feeding America, the Rainforest Foundation, and the Barbara Davis Center for Childhood Diabetes. Aretha's artistry has also earned her a number of academic distinctions. Among them are honorary degrees from both Harvard University and New York University. Aretha transitioned this life on Thursday, August 16, 2018, in Detroit, Michigan, surrounded by her friends and family. Those who are commending her loving spirit into the assurance of her eternal rest are her loved ones who preceded her, her parents, Clarence LaVon Franklin and Barbara Vernice Siggers, her sisters, Carolyn Franklin and Irma Franklin, her brothers, Cecil Franklin and Vaughn Franklin, and her nephew, Thomas Garrett Jr. She leaves to cherish her precious memories, her children, Clarence and Edward Franklin, Tanja, Theodore R. White III, and Kel Franklin, grandchildren, Stefan Fred, Jordan Franklin, Victory Franklin, Grace Franklin, great-grandchildren, Lanaya Brigham and Kasnir Brigham, one sister, Carl Ellen Kelly, two sisters-in-law, Earlene Franklin and Cynthia Franklin. Our first cousin reared as a sister, Brenda Corbett, James Corbett. Four nieces, Sabrina Owens, Oliver Owens, Crystal Franklin, Bridget Franklin, and Marlene Brown. Five nephews, Vaughn C. Franklin Jr., Christine Franklin, Timothy Franklin, Carolyn Franklin, Anthony Franklin, Pamela Franklin, Terrell Franklin, and Charles Smith, Tina Smith. One uncle, Simeon Siggers, June Siggers, and a host of great nieces, great nephews, and cousins, including Lerone Garrett, Brashay Garrett, Asia Garrett, Brooklyn Hardiman, Vaughn Franklin III, Kalisha Mosley, Dominique Hardy, Trina Veal, Joshua Franklin, Anthony Gates, Andrea Gates, Amber Hammond Franklin, Anthony Franklin, Santana Franklin, Cameron Green, Christina Davis, Jeremy Abernathy, Felton Lowe, Jeff Lowe, Romney Darrell, Doris Lowe, Billy Wilson, Dion Dindy, and Latanza Waters. Thank you.
While they're setting the harp in place, I want all pastors and ministers who have come from all over this country, please stand at this time and just acknowledge all of these men and women of God who have come to be a part of this great celebration. We thank God for each and every one of you. I know we acknowledge all of our congressional delegation as well. And I didn't look and see to my right. I was looking there, and I didn't see the congresswoman who has been attacked like never before. But she's a strong black woman. Congresswoman Maxine Waters from Southside LA, South Central. Everybody just point over there. Tell her we got your back. Come on, say it till everybody hear you out there. We got your back.
To the family and to all of you, Ave Maria.
I will keep you in a whole
Perfect peace.
perfect peace. All whose minds stay on thee. I will keep you in perfect peace. Perfect peace. All whose minds stayed on thee. Remember that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein, all belong to Him who has made He watches me. So why should I be bound? When God has set me free, can you tell me why? So why should I be bound when Jesus, He died? Jesus died for you and me. This is what He did, yeah. He has lived in all the I'm so glad. I'm so glad that He is. He's my Savior. Yes, He is. Yes, He is. He watches me. I'm glad to know that He is. Hey, He's the keeper. He's the keeper. Does anybody believe that today? Don't you know that God will make a way? Yes, He will. God I'm so glad that He is. He's my Savior. Yes, He is. Yes, He is. He watches me. I said that He is. Yes, He is. He's a keeper. He's a keeper. He's a keeper. He walks with me. He talks with me. He tells me that my name is on. I said He is.
You want to be kept. God bless you, Bishop Sapp. How about this Aretha Franklin Celebration Choir? At this time, we call to this podium and to this desk the former U.S. Attorney General, Eric Holder. He will be followed by Michigan Senator Debbie Stabenow. Let's receive these two in this order.
Good afternoon. To the Franklin family, this is a celebration of a life that was extremely well led. And there is joy in that. There's happiness even in that. But I cannot ignore the sadness that I feel in saying goodbye to a woman I was privileged to know and who I long admired before I ever had the chance to meet her. Whether I was a teenager in a basement party in New York City looking for that special someone to dance with to Ain't No Way, or a departing Attorney General of the United States, surprised and delighted that she came and sang America at my farewell ceremony. Aretha Franklin has always been a part of my life. And I think all of us can truly say that. It is hard to imagine that that magnificent voice has been stilled, that compelling presence has gone too soon. Now, she was born a princess. Her family made her so. But it was through her talent, determination, and care for others that she became a queen. Her family shared her with Detroit. Detroit shared her with America. This nation shared her with the world, but she was always ours. She was always ours, our princess and ultimately our queen. The issues that mattered to her were the same concerns of a people proud of her and who she never forgot. She was that rare queen who never lost the common touch. She could drop her fur coat on the stage of the Kennedy Center in front of those with great power and great wealth and continue to care about the plight of poor, unfairly treated people in forgotten parts of this country. In her voice was shared the joys, the sadness, the pain, and the faith of a people. Through the power of her artistry, her voice became universal for all people. Now, you felt that in her music. It was lyrical, it was sweet, it was earthy, it was sensual, it was righteous, and it was powerful. She moved us in ways that no artist ever had before or since. Aretha Franklin commanded respect. She deservedly received it, and she also made it possible for others. Now, hers was a consequential life beyond the impact that she had as a great singer, and that should never, ever be forgotten. In ways not known to many, she was a part of the movement that set this nation free. And she made one song in particular her own, and it became one of the anthems for another movement that made women more equal. In short, her status as a queen, unlike others who inherit a title, her title was earned. Now, it has been said that hers was a once-in-a-lifetime voice. That is simply not true. Her gift was almost otherworldly. There has never been, there will never be another voice melded to the consummate artistry that was Ms. Aretha Franklin. We should all count ourselves fortunate that we lived at a time when God deigned to share one of his true and unique gifts with us. Those who came before us and those who will come after us will not have the same privilege that we all have had. She made our lives richer and she made our lives better. She made this country both more sensitive and more just. Aretha Franklin made the world more beautiful and more understandable. She comforted us, she moved us, and she inspired us. God sang through her. Now, I know that she is in a better place and is surrounded now by so many that she missed for far too long. Our days will be a little less bright and our lives just a bit empty. That is the impact that this wonderful woman had on all of us. We must now find joy in her continuing ability through her recordings, her videos, to connect with one another, especially with those that we love, with her music and the unique way in which she describes so much of what we all experience. Now, I'm going to end by paraphrasing words from what is probably my favorite Aretha Franklin song. Though she won't call anymore, and we'll sit and wait in vain, our love is true, and it's all for you, Aretha Franklin. Rest in peace, my queen.
Isn't this a wonderful day to have the honor for all of us to be able to be here to celebrate and remember an incredible woman and an incredible life? Sad but joyful today. The Spirit of the Lord is in this place, and Aretha Franklin's spirit is here as well. This week, our nation is laying to rest two iconic figures. It's my honor to have the opportunity to participate here as Aretha Franklin's United States Senator, by the way. In a while, I'll fly back to be a part of Senator John McCain's funeral tomorrow. We are laying to rest two iconic figures, though different, represent who we are as America, our true American spirit in music and culture and love of the country in this 2 days, this next 2 days. America is big, America is bold, and nobody had a bigger voice or a bolder soul than our Aretha. When I flew a United States flag over the Capitol the day after her passing, and when a bipartisan group of lawmakers introduced legislation to award Aretha the Congressional Gold Medal, which we intend to do, we weren't only honoring her legacy as a musician, as you know. Instead, we were honoring her remarkable voice, a voice that stood up for justice, that stood up for equality, that stood up for civil rights, for doing the right thing for people. When you see it and when you don't see it, quietly and loudly, doing the right thing, while touching the hearts of the world. I treasure each and every opportunity I've had over the years to witness and to be with Aretha, watching what she did best. My last opportunity to be with her was when I had the opportunity to take part in introducing her at her final Detroit concert. She was sitting in the car before she went on. Reverend Jackson was with her. It was clear that she was struggling. And she walked up the stairs onto the stage. And then Aretha took over and did an incredible, incredible concert. And I was there in 2015 at the Kennedy Center Honors when Aretha strolled onto the stage with jewels and furs and floor-length fur, sat at the piano, and started to play and sing Natural Woman. And she brought President Obama to tears, as we know. And in those final majestic notes, she stood up,
She went to the center of the stage. She tossed the fur coat and raised her arms and brought every single person to their feet in that auditorium, including me. And I just had to yell out, "Detroit is in the house." We've lost a legend. Yet we can take comfort in the fact that Aretha's voice will always, always be with us in so many different ways. Aretha Franklin was the undisputed queen of soul, and this city is and will always be her kingdom. God bless each and every one of you in the Franklin family.
Please, everyone, stand to your feet. Shirley Chisholm made a run for the presidency in the 1970s, and in 1984 and 88, Reverend Jesse ran, and we dubbed his theme, "Run, Jesse, Run." Al Sharpton gave it a shot, and we didn't see Barack Obama coming. We declared that it would never happen. So in 1992, someone from Hope, Arkansas, became president of the United States, and we just dubbed him at that time the first black president of the United States. Please receive the Honorable William Jefferson Bill Clinton. Give God praise for Lady Hillary Clinton here as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Bishop. Reverend Smith, Mrs. Ellis, members of Aretha's family, for giving Hillary and me a chance to show up and just say we started out not as a president, a first lady, a senator, a secretary of state. We started out as like Aretha groupies or something. I mean, you know, she was only about 4 years older than me, 5 years older than Hillary. So when we were getting out of college was when she finally got her big breakthroughs. It's one thing I want to say to all the young people in the audience. Yes, she had the voice of a generation, maybe the voice of a century. Yes, she was born into a musical culture. Yes, she sat on the steps in her home and listened to Art Tatum, maybe the greatest jazz pianist who ever lived, play. But she also worked for years, I mean years, springing out of the church and the gospel music to the R&B clubs, the jazz clubs, the places where soul was being born, the places where rock and roll was being played. When nobody was paying particular attention. I went back and reread her autobiography the other day, and I said, oh my God, when she was making her way, she actually opened a jazz club for John Coltrane, and he did a set after her. Why am I saying this? This woman got us all here in these seats today. Right? Not because she had this breathtaking talent, which she did, not because she grew up, as Attorney General Holder said, at least a princess of soul because of her father, her mother, her relatives. but because she lived with courage, not without fear, but overcoming her fears. She lived with faith, not without failure, but overcoming her failures. She lived with power, not without weakness, but overcoming her weaknesses.